What is up, everyone? It is Lovenji Gaming here, and I am super sorry that I missed a video drop on the last week. I have not been very well at all. Seems with all these things going around, I seem to be catching everything. But hey, I'm back, I'm feeling much better, and it's quite sunny outside as well. So, without further ado, we're going into the last of the main sort of GDI covert operations, and unfortunately, it's going to be the most boring of the lot. So, I can only apologise for that. But there are multiple ways to do this mission, and the way I go for is probably the cheapest, but the most guaranteed for a success. And the reason I went for it is because I actually reset this about 20 times just to get the start right. So by the time I got to the mid-game, I was fed up and just wanted the level done. Anyway, without further ado, let's get this underway. What is up, everyone? First thing you need to do for this level is whack the game speed right down. That's something that we end up doing in most of our levels, and that is no exception here. Now, we're going to take the commander and we're going to head towards the west. You can go towards the east or the west. If you go towards the east, a fiery obelisk-related death awaits you. Now, slowly and carefully snipe down the relevant infantry and make your way into this western nod base. There is an element of RNG here based on the amount of minigunners that will spawn from the structures that you have to destroy, as is always the case with commando-based missions. There's a reason that commandos for all future levels do not produce infantry, the same way that this guy does. So, keep pushing your way in, ignoring the SAM sites for the moment being, and just clear out the remaining infantry. Then, launch your attack on the SAM sites themselves. Snipe the infantry that spawn, and once you've done that, you'll spawn in a unit of reinforcements. Now, initially, you look at the unit of reinforcements and you think, well, that's absolutely worthless. What am I going to do with that? And I can assure you, this mission requires you to think a little bit. Just a little. It's nowhere near as hard as the last mission that we just did, Twisted Fate, but it's a bit tedious. So, we grab one power plant because of low power mode. Selling an advanced power plant yields you 350 money, and that is less than it costs to take an engineer, which is why we don't take a second one and sell it. It's more cost effective just to keep the engineer. And so, the next part of the game begins. We train a second engineer, and I hope you like minigunners, because that's what we're doing. Now, one of the key defensive weaknesses with the Brotherhood of Nod is they lack a strong anti-infantry base defense, and that shows. And it's going to be how we actually launch our attack on the Brotherhood in this level. Sending the technician forward reveals the turrets because they're all going to shoot at the technician, and that helps. Next, we're going to grab all our infantry, sell our structures to get as many minigunners as physically possible, keep the technician back because he's basically worthless to us. And we move on to the next stage of the level. The next stage of the level is, well, a full charge. And you may have noticed how the song had just changed. That's because this attack goes wrong, and I saved you the time of watching it, as it was about a minute of me getting very annoyed. The attack actually went very well. Just one of my engineers got crushed by the harvester. As you can imagine, this is a mining base. And because this is a mining base, one of the additional challenges, as well as breaking the front line, is timing your attack to when the harvester is not travelling through those gates. Which I did not do the first time, and in my brilliance, I got my engineers run over, and this mission's kind of over if you lose these two engineers. But anyway, The attack is going to be rather straightforward. You send the infantry forward, you make sure your commando cleans out the infantry within inside the base, while your minigunners take the brunt of the gun turret base defences, doing their absolute best to stay out of the mining line of the Brotherhood of Nod's Harvester. Now, those flame troopers are very deadly, which is why we send a commando right on in there to deal with it. And this time, we're not going to let these guys get run over. For real, I swear. So, 2 engineers, it goes without saying, one of them to the refinery, one of them to the construction yard. Make sure that you clean up these very, very last gun turrets, and then your harvester can harvest completely freely. Now, the rest of the mission is very boring, uneventful, and straightforward from here on out. So, I'm going to do my best to talk filler. But all we're really going to do here is launch repeated, endless airstrikes against the Brotherhood of Nod, and that will spell their demise. Spam the hotkeys a little bit, because we can, of course. Now, I'm using the minigunners to clear these just purely because I don't want the infantry to spawn and ruin the commando's day. But as it goes without saying, you need access to the skies when you're on an island like this, and the only way you do that on any Command & Conquer level is to viciously take out all of the Brotherhood of Nod's SAM sites, or at the very least, in missions like this, the ones that are scripted to be important. Obviously, all the SAM sites on this side of the island are not the only ones that exist, as there are loads on Nod's main island, but these are the only ones you have to take out. With those taken out, and the silos taken over, we've got a nice little bunch of money to spend, and we're going to spend that taking over the Brotherhood of Nod's base. Now, what you're meant to do is that signal flare that's come up on that little island is a Brotherhood of Nod outpost, and you are meant to take control of that outpost. However, interestingly, and perhaps annoyingly, the Brotherhood of Nod is trying to attack you this whole time, and in doing so, the outpost actually becomes the most fortified location of the Brotherhood of Nod's fortress. Because that little outpost, instead, has all those tanks that have been trying to get to you waiting at the bottom of it. So it's not safe to just land a squad of 5 infantry in there, as the game wants you to. Which is why I don't do the intended strategy. It can be quite frustrating, and it can go wrong in a number of ways. Instead, as I have warned in previous levels, whenever the AI or the game gives us an early airstrike, we can use that to our advantage, and that is no different here. We are going to be abusing the ever-loving heck out of our airstrike. Now, there's very little to do but build up a base and airstrike the Brotherhood. And to that end, all we can really do now is mess around a little bit. One thing you should be aware of, I am not aware of in this playthrough, or rather I forget, is that the Brotherhood of Nod do land infantry on this island to attack you. And you'll see why that becomes a bit of a problem slightly later on. Not hugely later on, but certainly notably. Now, there's really nothing to do here but harvest, so we're going to save, and if that name didn't give it away, we're going to save and whack the game speed up.
Airstrike ready. Construction complete. Building.
And as you can see,
New construction options.
we're doing our very best, and there goes the infantry.
Silos needed.
We take a whole bunch of damage, but it's okay.
Ready.
Of course they are commandos, which is slightly annoying.
Unit ready. Building. Unit ready.
Ready and wait away, sir.
But fortunately, we built 2 bases, and that's going to be particularly relevant here. And the bare minimum of our infantry are able to repel the elite Brotherhood of Nod landing squad.
Select target.
And we can now airstrike the construction yard and immediately go back to the fastest game speed.
Construction complete. Airstrike ready. Building.
Now,
Construction complete.
the game plays about as interestingly as you're expecting it to.
Building.
We're going to build a whole bunch of silos that we can build a bank. We're going to game speed fast this so that the Tiberium grows as quickly as possible. And we're going to launch a whole bunch of airstrikes to really harass the heck out of the Brotherhood of Nod. We're looking for things like silos, which is going to hold their Tiberium reserves. And as you can see at this game speed, we can really just airstrike after airstrike after airstrike. So we've taken out one of their bases, essentially, and we're going to move on to the other one. The airstrike itself does reveal the map, which is very useful as a scouting tool.
Select target.
But because we've kept the Chinook alive, we do have plans to eventually land on the Brotherhood of Nod's base. It'll be a bit late by the time we actually achieve that.
Airstrike ready. Select
We can target all of the power so that the Brotherhood of Nod's power supplies are not as healthy as they would like them to be.
target.
And this will put any obelisks on low power mode, which is particularly important.
Airstrike ready. Select
And we can continue to kill their silos, which again removes their bank of money from them and leaves them in a very isolated position.
select target.
With no construction yards and refineries dwindling, they are going to be repairing their buildings every few seconds, and on doing so, slowly whittling down the remaining reserves of funds that they actually have left.
Select target.
Now, they've got a couple of helicopters on landing pads, which a couple of direct strikes will deal with in no problem at all. And you can see that the Brotherhood of Nod, even now, is still just accumulating forces on that bank. The bank that it wants you to land on.
Airstrike.
Now,
Select target.
all we're going to do is just keep airstriking until that other Apache is down, and you can probably see what our next plan is. Our next plan is to actually land on this island, now that it's been a bit ruined.
Ready. Select target.
These constant airstrikes are whittling through the Brotherhood's supplies, as it were.
Target.
So even though they seem like they're not doing very much, they have a small amount of effect.
Select target.
If the Brotherhood is repairing buildings constantly, then it's going to run out of money sooner. And one of the things it will do when it does that assess for an auto repair thing is it will check if it has the funds to, and if it doesn't, it will start selling. So over a long amount of time, you reach this point where the Brotherhood of Nod will start selling its own defensive structures. And in selling its own defensive structures, it further weakens itself.
Select target.
And you can see, we can start to really weaken the tanks on the bank because we have nothing else left to do with them.
Select target.
These airstrikes whittling down Nod's forces. And now,
Ready.
the Brotherhood pretty much is just waiting for us to kill it. And you can imagine that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be launching a infantry invasion with some engineers, and then we're going to spam the Brotherhood's own weaponry against it. But all we're doing is making sure we take out any threatening structures first.
Unit lost. Airstrike ready.
You can see the Brotherhood has been without mining for so long that the Tiberium has actually creeped all the way up into their base, and once we make this landing, you'll start to see how entertaining it actually is.
Airstrike ready. Select target.
I identify there that they've stopped repairing, which is particularly useful.
Airstrike ready.
So, now that we actually have to do something, we're going to move.
Building.
And at this angle, the SAM site should miss.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, moving out. Moving out.
And because it missed,
Select.
we've got an engineer on the island.
Not building captured. Primary building selected. Unit lost. Building.
Now, we have access to
Construction.
the Brotherhood's base.
Primary building selected.
We can start to produce tanks on their own island.
Building. Unit ready.
Of course, they do have gun turrets, which is, you know, it is a thing.
Captured. Building. Construction complete.
And they
Building.
also have these
Building
bike
Building.
buggy loads.
Construction complete. Reinforcements have arrived.
But you can see we have pretty much unlimited production with the economy that we have.
Reinforcements
The obelisks are offline, so we can just destroy the gun turrets, as they're the only threat to our now ever-growing tank army.
lost. Reinforcements have arrived. Building. Construction complete.
And this is pretty much how we're going to kill the level.
Construction complete.
We're just constantly producing endless amounts of light tanks, constantly pushing at the Brotherhood of Nod, and eventually we're going to taste victory as a result.
Reinforcements have arrived.
With the game speed up, I take even less requirements to do anything out of my hands. So you do hear that horrible sound of a tank shooting at maximum game speed. One of the things I want you to look at during the end screen, this will be the last thing I say before I let the level finish, is actually if you look at the game time at the end screen, you'll see it says 9 hours and 52 minutes. Now, of course, we did not spend that long on this mission, but it shows you just how fast the game speed fastest actually is, that this equivalent would be greater than 10 hours, because that timer actually caps at 9:52. It can't go any higher than that value. So that's just the highest value it could list. That's not necessarily the highest value, or the value that the game thinks we spent in the level. That gives you a really strong idea of how this level goes. Anyway, I'll be quiet for now, I'll let the level close out, and I'll see you in the outro.
Have arrived.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Unit acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Unit moving out. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit lost. Building. Reinforcements have arrived. Reinforcements
Yeah.
have arrived.
Yeah. Moving out.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Moving out. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Moving out. Moving out. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Acknowledged. Move.
Mission accomplished.
Thank heavens for the game speed up, hey. That got us through that mission with nary a problem, but hey, the start is the hardest part of that mission. If you can get the start down, you can experiment with the rest of the mission. I just wanted it over and done with, if I'm perfectly honest with you, because I recorded this one right before I wanted to go to bed. So the fact that I restarted it 20 times, you could just guess how annoyed I was. And I just decided to, you know, drop airstrikes on Nod repeatedly, because I was fed up. Anyway, as always, like, share the video, leave a comment, subscribe, join me in Discord, and most importantly, given the current state of the world, stay safe. Bye for now.